And so as you see, we have a very balanced panel that is going to have this conversation. The way we're going to look at it is in 3 phases. We'll start with context setting. After that, we'll get into just a few questions on just deep diving into the topic. And then after that, we'll just get into a quick fire just to get energy as we close. So just to start, and I'll start with Frank for the context setting. So Frank, from your, the vantage point you have in the boardroom, how has the expectation of IT, from the board members evolved over the years?
All right. Thank you. Good morning. Morning. It's morning and we are all right. Thank you very much. I'll answer that, but I want to give a context into the current where we are, then I go back. Today, one of the largest economies when it comes to cyber crime. This is the first GDP, the biggest is US, over a number of trillions, and number 2 is China, over 17 trillion. Cybercrime is over 10 trillion. Is the third largest, biggest economy. Now that's today, and it will align with the conversations we are having. So if you go back, and I like what you started with, is if you remember the constitution of the board before, there are 3 things: trust, accountability, and governance. That is the core role for any board that is being set up, and that it has been like that since the 14th century all the way to today. But at CIO and CTO sitting on the board then, it was more technical, it was more hardware. And every time anyone would go to the board level to pitch for something around technology, this is what we need, there are a lot of competing priorities then, because the board looks for outcome. The board wants results. They want something that is tangible. So then board was more, IT as a hardware. IT was being looked at as something totally separate from the business strategy. If you're hired afresh in any organization, the conversation will be, my laptop is not working. I need my Excel fixed. IT help desk was there, and all that basic things used to happen. But then also remember that then board was perceived to be for older people. You must have maybe worked, for a number of years. So at board level, you just find age was a bit of a factor then. But as we start to move today, we are almost seeing Gen Zs being incorporated into boards because the narrative is changing. The biggest quotient today is adaptability quotient that everybody must get attached to, including CIOs and CTOs. So the board of today, they've moved from the basement to the cockpit. They're no longer talking about the hardwares, the techie. They're talking about strategy. And they have to be part and parcel of the strategy. The narrative has changed. The board of today are being given, budget, so that not only the CIO and the CTO needs to understand the tech, but also the rest of the board members need to be taken through training, what we called tech for non-tech board members. And that is how the narrative is changing today. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Yeah, so for a CIO CTO, actually, it's very, very challenging because in one breath, you're expected to speak to the tech. When you get to the board, it should not be the acronyms and the difficult words. And in another breath, you're supposed to speak to things like capital, allocations and the business language. So let's see how that progresses. And maybe moving to you, Deji, what is the most significant technology challenge you face in meeting board expectations?
Oh, thanks, Hilda. And to build on what Frank just said, so I won't be answering these on ITs, changing laptops, fixing internets. I feel it's an insult to us at this time because we've grown into strategy, and I believe I'm speaking to CIOs, CTOs in the room. So my biggest challenge is what I call, and I'm also guilty of it because I'm on 2 other boards apart from Seamless HR, where I provide technology guidance, is what I call expectation inflation. And what I mean by that is, like Frank has said, boards are now being trained on IT. Boards are being sent to US, take courses on AI, mixing with other people. And the board would come Oh, I was in Singapore. There's this company doing this, 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 this. When are we going to start doing it? Can we get it done this year? Webboard is setting expectations. They want innovation. They want AI. And guess what? They are giving you pre-AI budgets and said, this is the cost you have to play with, and this is how much I'm going to give you. I'm not going to increase that count, find a way around it. But they want that innovation and that stuff to be done. Then again, you still have to talk about technical debts. You still have to talk about infrastructure debt. You still have to talk about compliance. You still have to talk about regulations in a country, especially like Africa, where sometimes you still have, and back to it, connectivity issues in some places. You still have some hybrid systems you have to deploy when you are deploying that innovation. I think that's still the biggest challenge. And a way I try to overcome that is to explain to the board, not using buzzword as much as possible, understand the business, understand the goal, that why the board is asking for it, and again explain the problems to them so that they also, you carry them along in what you're trying to do. And with that, you've been able to see them aligning and supporting IT rather than being at loggerheads with you.
Indeed. And then I think for most CIOs, CTOs, there is known bad blood with CFOs. And so for Mohammed, who largely sits within finance, we see where IT wants to innovate, finance wants to optimize. How do you strike the balance and make sure that these are not competing agendas for the organizations?
Thanks. Good morning. So, from my experience, that has been one of the biggest challenges that we faced in the board, even as management. Maybe what needs to happen from the IT department is go beyond just proposing an infrastructure or a solution to, sorry, maybe some buzzwords here, to see what return it's going to bring to the business. Because I think from what was presented by the chairman, you see that the uptake of the top 100 is just about 50% where they've adopted almost all the solutions. And that's a challenge whereby maybe if you go beyond adoption, usually the financial challenges at times when it comes to incorporating some of these solutions or some of these infrastructures for the business. So from my perspective, from a finance background, it's not that those solutions are not supposed to be implemented, but again, it depends on the resources available to implement those solutions. So it's a chicken and egg question. It's how do you optimize and how do you ensure that those solutions provide growth, while at the same time there's adequate cost benefit analysis to determine that there's a good return on investment, or that there's waste elimination by whatever is being proposed to be implemented by the department.
Indeed. Thank you. And then to you, Marion, how has IT enabled your commercial strategies and the ability to respond to the changing market shifts?
Okay, morning. So I work in what we like to call the fun side of business. And I think that question for me is obvious, because why are we in business? It's to solve customer problems, right? Any business, any shareholder, any founder wants to be able to convince real people that you are the best at solving a problem that they have. And how do you know you've convinced them? Is you get them to pay you to solve that problem for them. And so for me, technology is part of that. Like, it's a problem solver. Customers have problems. For me, tech is the space I go to say, is there a way we can solve the problem? Yeah.
Thank you. And I think that's how IT got onto the table, that you stop showing tech and you start showing the business how you're actually solving a business issue. Because solutions have always solved business issues, but I think the way we've been selling, the initiatives was a bit different. And so that's why they were seen as a cost. And so I'm glad that we are evolving. So moving on to a bit more detailed discussion, and back to you, Frank, maybe from an MD's perspective, what convinces you that technology investments are delivering the real business value?
Sorry, please repeat.
What convinces you that technology investments are delivering real business value?
I mean, look at, let's go to COVID time. I mean, it would be the perfect example I can give, right? I think for a while, we thought uh, e-commerce and people moving to transacting digital was going to be something that maybe CIOs and CTOs are going to drive. Then COVID came in, and even banks themselves, they didn't know they can work remotely, And most of us actually got to realize that we had Zoom and Teams that you were never using, but you were paying for them, right? And this also just tells you when it comes to technology, uh, again, are there investments we make blindly? Are there investments we make because you hear your competition is also doing the same thing, so you just want to do it for the sake of it? And for me, COVID gives me a perfect example to demonstrate the importance of tech in any organization, because for the first time, everyone, almost 100%, realized that actually we can still achieve everything working remotely. And what was contributing to that? It was technology. Banks, all of a sudden, at board level, I remember would have virtual board meetings. One of the most interesting things is our board members did not even know how to log in. Zoom, where do I press? If you guys remember videos, you're not even aware your video is showing. We were caught off guard by technology itself. So the one thing that is happening is we invest on tech, but sometimes I feel technology is moving so fast, the human psychology has remained behind. And today, if there's a board member or there's a CIO CTO who really questions the importance of investments, I would always refer them back to COVID time, because it was a perfect example. Everything was online. So without a doubt, I think that is one of the areas. But then when I sit on like the Zanzibar, board that I sit on advising on the digital strategy, I'll tell you for free, the constitution of the board is also very important. How you constitute your board, because you're talking about how to make it a silicon Zanzibar. And then another board member is talking about, but we have groundnuts, korosho in Swahili. Why can't we put more effort on that side? Cashew nuts, right? And you wonder, the constitution of your board is also important, so that the infrastructure that you're putting in, when you need to invest, is very critical. So I would perfectly give the example of COVID.
Yeah.
As you have to invest, because that was a very good example. Thank you.
Yeah. So what Frank says reminds me, when IT, something like a VPN access was for the privileged few. Now I think it's for everyone now. So good discussions there. Maybe to you, Deji. When boards ask for digital transformations, what do you wish they knew better? I mean, like in this age of AI, I'm sure now every leader is being pressured to get into AI. What do you wish they knew better?
Thank you for that question. And again, maybe as I did earlier on, I will piggyback on what Frank said. And when Frank was speaking, he actually sounded like one of my board members, actually. They're asking for, we need this innovation, we need this AI, we need, let's call it digital transformation. And sometimes might forget that the cashew nut is what is paying us right now. So what I did and how I balance, and what I wish the board knew when they are asking for digital transformation is that digital transformation is, I dare say, is 20% technology really, and it's 80% behavioral change or the people. There was a time the board mandated in the heat of AI earlier this year, and the board said we need to reduce head count as much as possible, get everyone to start using AI. There's this company in US that cuts down their staff by 70%, and they are making this kind of revenue. Yeah, that's new technology. That's new software you have to pay for. But then again, if people don't adopt it, people are not using it, it would fail. You will end up not having business. There's a company in Asia that fired their customer success and started using AI. After a while, they brought everybody back because it was too expensive. for them to use. Then the people that should manage and actually train the AI, use them and use their cognitive ability were not being trained properly. So what I'm saying, what I wish the board knew is that digital transformation is more of the people than the technology. The technology would aid, but the people also are important. And that's why I would encourage CIOs, CTOs in the room to be more involved in the people. Because my interaction with some CIO is just all about systems, about technology, which the board would ask for. The board would be excited because of FOMO, that's fear of missing out. But the people are also more important. And that's why at Seamless HR, when we speak to CIOs, speak to CFOs, we try to show the benefits of people, that if you have the right software for them, and as the chairman said during his opening speech, and people adopt those technology, you will move way faster. You will get results. You will get outcome way faster than just deploying technology and deploying the next shining thing.
Thank you, Deji. And to Mohammed, how does an effective CFO-CIO relationship look like in terms of aligning things like budgets and maybe return on investments from the IT initiatives?
Okay, so usually in the budgeting process, the CIO will provide the requirements that are needed. And of course, those requirements, depending whether it's to do with an ERP change or whether it's to do with the hardware change or anything or maintenance, it has to correspond with the available resources and to determine how that is going to be funded. Now, if there's a clear funding channel or if the clear funding model on the requirements by the CEO, the relationship is very good. And you know, the different ways in which those can be funded, but even that funding comes in with the assessment of what is the impact on the growth or the revenues of the business or the bottom line or profitability. So, for example, if you're changing into an ERP system or if you're upgrading, what's the because that mostly will have an impact, say, in terms of cost management. If you're looking at maybe growth, there'll probably be an investment in terms of areas of that diversify revenue channels for the business. Maybe you might be adapting e-commerce or something. So as long as the CIO is able to justify positive numbers on whatever is being budgeted for, it's very easy also for the CFO to be able to defend that at the board level and to be able now to get their adequate and proper funding to drive that implementation or proposal by the CIO.
Thank you. That gives us hints how to sell some of this to the board. And maybe now to Marion. From a growth standpoint, what do you need from IT that maybe often you don't get on time?
Great. So I think that I don't get on time. Well, I think maybe the first one I would say would be solutions over technology. And so the example I'll give is if you've ever, the first time I traveled and I was able to buy myself something nice, I bought a gadget from the US. And I came with it to Kenya and I didn't know that you can't, if you don't get a converter and you try and plug in the tech, what happens is it blows up, right? So the gadget was great. It was absolutely fantastic, but it wasn't designed to solve a problem within the context, which is this lady lives in a country where this kind of plug doesn't work or this kind of voltage doesn't work. Sometimes I think we get really great technology, but it's not solving a real problem in a very real context. And it often sometimes can take very long with back and forth between commercial, between marketing, between the customer team and tech before they find, in fact, it feels like we've punished them because it means they have to sacrifice aspects of the tech in order to get solutions. I do think that I wish that came a bit faster. I think the second thing is, and I say this especially at a leadership level, is that even if you're a CTO or CIO, when you're at a C-suite level, you have to share the business outcomes with the rest of the organization. So you can't, there are times when in different organizations, you'll be told, here, we've designed it, go and get the numbers. And while I can understand that need to have, this is my function and my work ends here, Shared outcomes means we are all invested behind why aren't customers taking it up? What could this be telling me about the solutions we've created? What are the hiccups you're facing in market? How could tech enable quickly finding solutions to that? I wish that came a lot faster. And then I think for me, it's a debate. I'm actually would love to have conversations with people over the break over this around what is the role in human-centered design and technology. Where do the two meet? I know the example I think that was given by one of the MCs around the button isn't in the right place. I think it was a keynote. So tech designed something really great and they're being told the button isn't there. That may seem like a small thing, but that is at the core of designing solutions for real people. If the button isn't where it's supposed to be and they don't see it, you haven't really delivered it. So I think one of the other things has been the investment within the information and technology space around design and human-centered design, because I think that would accelerate how quickly we're able to design solutions if that's part and parcel of the tech process.
Okay, thank you, Marion. We've come to the end of our panel, unfortunately because of time, but maybe I would like to just give maybe one chance to someone from the audience, whether there is a question they'd like to ask, or maybe actually to answer one of our questions. If you could change one thing about how boards view IT, what would that be? Then you'll help us wrap up the conversation. From the audience. If there's one thing you'd actually change. Okay.
What will it be?
Thank you very much. I was holding back and hoping that somebody else will stick their hand up. I think just something that I've seen and experienced is, and it's maybe just a comment, now your comment around CIO, CFO, the relationship, and so forth. Sometimes, nobody wants surprises when it comes to budgets. Don't go to a CIO and say, what do we need now? You must ask the question, what do we need now, but what do we need in the next year or 2, 3? And get out of a mode that is reactive. Let's start planning for the future. Because then you can budget well. You've got a sense of how the business is going to grow. Maybe if we hit these targets, so if we grow like this, this might be our revenue, and then we can plan well, for our ICT around that. So I think it's often the question that is being asked in the boardroom. We have to look a little bit down the line and not be reactive in that. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I saw many other hands, but unfortunately we are short of time. And so in concluding, I think IT, like we said, no longer sits at the corner of the table. We have a permanent seat on the table. And I think it's up to us, like the consistent messaging that has come across, how do we translate the digital ambitions into business outcomes? And I believe if we do that, then it will be an easier discussion and communication within the boardroom. Thank you very much.